Welcome to Movie Speeching. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take good care. Brain Freeze is the name of the movie. Please like and subscribe to get every update. In a gated island community in Montreal, a biotechnology company is hired to care for the grounds of an exclusive golf club. They sprayed the area with the latest fertilizer to melt the snow and keep the grass green in the winter so the rich could play golf all year round. The next day in town, security guard Dan brings a bunch of supplies to his house. He's an obsessed survivor who does his worst and is brainwashed by a radio show that encourages every possible plot. Tonight, Dan practiced starting a fire without matches, to no avail, so he took a shotgun shell and used its powder, causing a small explosion that burned his eyebrows. At the golf club, Dan's daughter Patricia caddies while Michelle, CEO of a biotech company, plays golf with a wealthy couple to show them how good the grass is thanks to their handling. But underground, fertilizer particles proliferate and pollute the city's water supply. In the studio, an actor named Jack drinks a glass of tap water before leaving to shop. At the store, all fruits and utensils are also washed with tap water, and the shelves are also sprayed with water to keep perishable goods always fresh. Suddenly, Jacques began to feel a bit dizzy but ignored it for the time being. When he got home, he noticed his teeth were turning blue and his stomach was gurgling. When he found his wife in the bathroom, he became a zombie and bit the poor woman, eating her and causing her to transform as well. Jacques joined her in the bathtub when their eyes turned green and they stopped. Back at the club, Michelle and the couple returned to the main building and were surprised to see no one around. Suddenly, a man runs away shouting that they have to run because people are sick, and soon a group of zombie employees run out chasing him. At that moment, a dog also appeared and the woman called it, but the animal angrily jumped up and bit her neck. Michelle and his wife immediately threw the dog away, only to see more zombies appear. As the woman freezes to death as her body transforms, the two men rush inside the building and lock the door to scare away the zombies. However, the dog snuck in and bit the husband's leg, so they locked him in another room. The zombies gathered at the door and began knocking before the husband in turn transformed and pursued Michelle, who rushed to hide in the kitchen after grabbing a knife. In town, Dan receives a call from an old woman who tells him that her neighbors are very noisy and often fight. Dan gets there, and when he rings the bell, the neighbors appear at the door, revealing that they are zombies. At the same time, the old woman also turned into a zombie and began to pursue Dan, who immediately hid in his car and tried to call for reinforcements, but no one answered him. As more and more she's busy escaping from the zombies. Worried, Dan decided to leave the company car and took the car with a gun to go find his daughter. Nearby, teenager Andre almost used tap water to make milk for his sister Annie, but his mother reminded him to use bottled water to ensure the baby's safety. Andre never drinks water, preferring only soft drinks. Soon, the mother began to feel dizzy, but Andre attributed this to the exercise she's been doing. Moments later, the mother turns into a zombie and attempts to attack Andre, chasing him around the house. Terrified, the child ran out and tripped, but when the mother was about to reach him, Dan hit her with his car. She was injured but still alive, and Andre wanted to help her, but Dan stopped him. He explained that 911 was unresponsive and told Andre to hide in his house, after which he left. More zombies arrive and Andre refuses to leave his mother's side, so he grabs her leg and drags her into the house. After hastily closing all the doors, he tried to call 911 but received a recorded message that the island was under quarantine. On the bridge connecting the island to the mainland, we learned that the city police had installed a gate and no one could get in or out. At that moment, the mother was about to attack Annie, so Andre pulled her away and locked her in the bathroom. The mother noticed that the shower head was dripping a little water and decided to step into the bathtub. Meanwhile, Annie continues to cry, causing zombies to gather outside the door. Andre decides to cover her with pillows, blankets, and even a large stuffed animal until the screams stop being heard and the zombies leave. A few minutes later, Andre's cat comes home through the cat flap and suddenly a zombie gets inside, almost catching Andre. The boy leaves the room and the zombie stops moving, only moving again when Andre returns with a golf club. However, it does not attack but prefers to hide. At the golf club, Patricia hides in the garage and eventually calls her father for help. Just then Dan arrives and finds a group of zombies outside, but he doesn't hesitate to fight them, quickly killing a few with a knife and knocking out others before rushing inside. At this time, the police moved away from the bridge gate as the military used planes to bomb main areas of the island and cut off power. The next morning, Annie's nanny tries to use the bridge to go to work, but it is also destroyed. Meanwhile, Andre films the zombies through the window, stopping only to attend the press conference of the Minister of Public Safety. The man explains that they had to destroy the bridge to isolate the problem and swears that the situation is under control. At that moment, Andre's phone ran out of battery. Andre then went to see his mother and found her covered in green mucus. Suddenly, Annie walks in and the mother is about to attack her, so Andre makes noise and shakes his favorite vegetables to get her to follow him. Finally, they reach the living room and the mother accidentally bumped into the TV shelf, causing the TV to fall and her to die. Overcome with grief, Andre had no choice but to take the body to the toilet and noticed grass growing on his wound. He then grabbed his phone, but unfortunately it was broken. Andre then takes the ladder up to the front door to look outside and confirm that the zombies are right there, in the sun. Tired of being detained, he grabs a golf club and puts Annie in a stroller before opening the door, allowing the zombies to spot the cat and chase after it. Once the entrance was clear, Andre ran as fast as he could towards the grocery store while the zombies chased him. The door was locked, and he was almost surrounded by monsters, but suddenly a door opened and Dan pulled him inside. Dan was here yesterday and has set up a small campsite, but he doesn't have a plan yet. All the boats were taken away, and swimming in the river would have caused them to die of hypothermia. Andre goes looking for formula while Annie looks around and suddenly discovers a zombie behind a locked door. It was Patricia, who was also infected. Dan kept her because he hoped someone could heal her later. At the golf club, Michelle reinforced all the gates and used the radio to talk to the people at the company, who informed him that experts were coming and that he too had to follow protocol. The zombie dog kept barking at him, so he pushed him away. It is also revealed that he killed his friend in the kitchen. Back at the store, Dan still couldn't start a fire, so Andre just used a blowtorch. While eating something, they listened to Dan's favorite radio show, which blames eco-terrorists for the zombie attack. The host had the opportunity to interview the Minister of Security, but this man was a typical politician, avoiding questions or answering with vague words, saying nothing. Suspicious, the homeowner said the government would sacrifice citizens to clean up the area. Dan decides to call the radio station and explain that there are still survivors and ask for help. However, the host pointed out that the rest of the world does not want to be infected, and so he wants to know what is going on before taking anyone's side. Frustrated, Dan hung up the phone. Dan and Andre then discuss their options and agree that they should find out the reason behind this so a vaccine can be created. Dan thinks about it and comes to the conclusion that he must be in the water because that's what everyone has in common, and he doesn't drink water from the tap because of his paranoia. He even suggested that terrorists might have poisoned the water supply, which Andre found laughable. Moments later, the trio left the store with Patricia, who placed her head in the cage to avoid being bitten. They find a group of zombies covered in green slime and enjoying the sunshine, and a little girl attacks Dan as soon as she sees him. He quickly pushed her away, but he didn't have the heart to kill her and continued. The group manages to get into Dan's car before the zombies catch up with them and safely leave the area. Meanwhile, two sets of gun-toting twins sent by the biotech company head to the golf club and take down any zombies that try to get in their way without breaking a sweat. Inside, Michel burned all the contracts and documents related to his contract with the club, but he kept a small sample of fertilizer. The twins quickly find him and Michel takes one of their suitcases, which contains spheres containing a cure that will kill the infection in 24 hours. When he grabbed a sphere, the twins caught him and forced him to eat the fertilizer sample before knocking him unconscious. As they dragged his body away, the ball fell to the ground. Back with the survivors, they arrive at the water plant and decide to leave Annie in the car or her cries will attract the zombies. They can't leave Patricia with the baby, so Dan and Andre take her as they enter the building, where a grassy zombie is hiding in the water. Patricia senses him and starts running to find him, so the boys have no choice but to follow her. She quickly found the pool and jumped in, causing Dan to jump in to save her. Suddenly, the other zombie emerges and almost attacks, but when Dan finds Patricia, he holds her in front of him and the other zombie backs away. Andre came closer and realized that the zombies would not attack each other, but the monster heard him and immediately chased him. While Andre goes out and the other zombies join the chase, Dan tries to pull Patricia out of the water and accidentally breaks her arm. Finally, Andre reaches the car to hide inside and soon Dan gets out too, using Patricia as a shield to keep the zombies at bay. They got into the car with their siblings and Andre heard a noise that made him understand that Patricia also had a phone. He took it and used his severed arm to unlock it, causing him to notice grass growing over the wound. Dan thinks winter grass is strange until he remembers the latest invention of golf clubs and realizes they are not the work of terrorists, but of golfers. At the golf club, the twins begin smashing balls into the grass to make all evidence disappear. Just then, Dan's group arrived and they noticed strange smoke on the lawn, so Andre remembered to write everything down. They ran to the front door and found it locked, so Dan found another entrance. He climbed onto the roof and went inside to open the door for the others, then locked Patricia in the storage room while Andre used a chair as a crib for Annie. Dan and Andre began investigating the building and found the dog still breathing and covered in grass. At that moment, Dan started to feel dizzy and Annie started crying, so Andre ran over to help calm her down. However, he discovered that she had escaped from the makeshift park. While Andre searches for his sister, Dan enters a dark hallway and discovers a pile of bombs about to blow up the building. He also started to feel worse, but he refused to give up and kept going until he found the room with the timer connected to all the explosives. Dan fell and was too weak to get up, so he used Patricia's arm to stop the watch just before her eyes also turned green. Outside, the twins noticed nothing had exploded and went back inside to investigate. They found Annie in the kitchen and gave her some fertilizer before leaving. Andre kept looking around and saw Michelle transformed in a locked room, so he ran in the opposite direction and eventually found his sister, so he took her away. In another room, he finds himself stopped by the twins, who gag Annie and grab Andre to give him fertilizer. However, before the specimen falls, Annie also becomes a zombie and bites the twin's finger. The other twin was almost attacked by Dan, and when she pushed him away, Andre pushed her towards him and Dan bit her. As Andre steps back, he steps on the healing sphere, causing smoke to spread throughout the room and begin working inside Danny and Dan. Dan then chases after Andre and they enter the kitchen, but as Dan is about to bite him, he senses Annie's presence and retreats. At the same time, the twins pulled out guns and shot each other simultaneously before either of them could finish transforming. Andre then took Dan's old phone out of his jacket and used it to call Patricia. When he found it, he made a video explaining everything and begging for help. When the video gets attention, Andre takes Dan to the storage room so he can be with his daughter. Immediately afterward, the government sent military helicopters to conduct a thorough cleanup. A group of soldiers used flamethrowers to burn any zombies in their path, and Andre goes out to ask for help, carrying Patricia's arm to use as a vaccine. However, another survivor approached the soldiers first and was shot dead. When the cure takes effect and Annie gets better, Andre decides to hide because it's clear the soldiers aren't there to save anyone. At the golf club, Dan also recovered, but when the soldiers opened the door, they immediately burned him and Patricia alive. The Minister of Public Safety announced that the infection had been contained and eliminated, but he was seen drinking from a cup with the logo of the biotechnology company, suggesting that he was involved in the conspiracy from the beginning. Andre continued to wander, finding more bodies of downed survivors. Suddenly, he noticed something on the river. It was a volunteer boat led by Annie's nanny, who brought him to help without hesitation. As they leave the island, Andre realizes that the arm is now useless and throws it into the water, where a fish bites it and quickly becomes a zombie. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video.